Go. Welcome to episode number 4 of the Apostste Alliance. The Apostste Alliance, where you can be free to not believe. And we are joined this week, myself, by Zara Kay, one of my favorite people to read tweets from on Twitter there. And I don't know how she describes herself, but I describe her as a human rights activist because most of what she talks about in her tweets is people that are being persecuted, for different reasons. And I see Zara often, going after some of these people that want to, say horrible things about their fellow human beings. And we will get to an interview with Zara here in a few minutes. Welcome to my fellow host, Faye the Most Gracious. And
it's good to be here.
Thank you. Like we do on all episodes, we are going to talk about some news items. And so I am going to turn my camera off and put my avatar up so that you don't have to watch me holding this phone right next to my eyes to be able to read it. But what I wanted to talk about today, I bookmarked, several tweets that had news stories in them. But we're not going to get to all those today because there's two particular ones I want to talk about that this exMuslim had tweeted out about, and I want to get Faye and Zara's thoughts on these. But there's a couple threads that this person put out. They are at Punic Agra Tanum. I'm not sure if I'm reading that right. But they put out a tweet. The first one here is about people that have been killed in Iran. The first person that this, I wish I had an easier name to say for this person, Punic Gratanum, or if I'm saying that right. But this thread, people that have been killed in Iran. The first person she mentions, and I'm not really familiar with a lot of these, so that's why I hope Zara and Faye will give their thoughts on this. This person, Nikita S. Fandiari, age 14, was shot in the head during the protest in November 2019. Her family was not charged for the bullet like all the other families because Nikita was a minor. Do either of you know more about this?
So there was, I wasn't well informed about this at all until it was sort of brought to my attention a few days ago, actually. Last year in November, there was a massive uprising in Iran, and I don't know why none of us had heard of it because so many people had been killed, up to about 1,500 people in this uprising. And this girl was just one of several people who had been shot during this. And usually the sort of people who are under Khamenei's regime, they will charge you for the bullet, and sometimes they won't even return the bodies of your loved ones. They will, insist that if you have a funeral, you can't have a massive gathering. Not everybody can see. They'll tell you where to bury the bodies. It's quite disgraceful, and I mean, there's not much for me to talk about it. I don't know enough about it that I can address it fully. But I did do a video just reading out all of the people who've been killed under this regime for a number of different reasons, be that being ethnic minorities, for blaspheming, for taking their headscarves off, all kinds of stuff. So that's as much as I can really say about it. But this user had posted an entire thread, and she also has a lot of information about different people who had been killed in the Iranian regime.
It's really surprising and shocking, actually, that I was just reading through. Apparently, like Faye said, that if you're killed during that time, you have to pay for the bullet, and her fee was waived because she was a minor.
Yeah.
And apparently they were meant to be grateful about it.
Could you clarify for me or for anybody that's listening, like what does that mean when you guys say pay for the bullet?
So no, you have to pay money, the cost of the bullet. You have to. So if you were shot, your family has to pay how much it costs for the bullet. So if it was like £50, you pay £50 to the government for the person who's killed or injured by that bullet. So like actually pay money for that bullet. Like it's literally like.
But hers was waived because she's a minor.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So like that's how horrid it is. Like
China, I think, does the same thing.
And, I mean, another person that was killed during those same protests was, and again, I apologize if I'm butchering these names, Poria Bakatieri, something like that, and then I haven't figured out the screen share yet, but. This user also leaves a little video clip that actually shows this person, how they were killed, and showing them in the aftermath of it. I will in the video description. I am going to link to both of these Twitter threads here so that you can go check it out yourself. Amir Hossein Sadeghi was a genius student and researcher who had designed a cheap water desalination. He appeared on TV for his work. He was killed by Khamenei IR. That's apparently someone's Twitter handle. The regime then demanded money from his family for the return of his body. So they had to pay money to get their loved one's body to to honor them. So anything you guys want to comment on that one?
So this story, again, it was only brought to my attention a few days ago, and this is a sort of trend that we've seen, that in these uprisings, in these protests, we've seen many people, young, old, as young as 13, actually, I think confirmed, just go missing, be killed, the bodies not returned, the bodies buried in, sort of unmarked ditches with other people. It's really sick. It's really sick. And it's a real shame that we've lost someone who, was working towards making his country and the world essentially a better place by, inventing this way of desalinating water. There just isn't much to say about it except that it's gross, and I don't know why the more mainstream media isn't picking up on it.
What was the outcome of the protests? Like, what happened after that?
So from what I've seen, several people were killed. Nothing was changed. There just isn't a lot. Like,
I think it was also. I think COVID had also hit after that, so things went like really rash as well after that, and I don't think there was an outcome. But like, it just proves how authoritarian and dictators stay in power, especially because they don't give a shit about the people's lives. They care about the power. They care about instilling fear onto people. It's why they have arrests for blasphemy, or defying forced hijab laws and whatnot. It's always about taking that power and keeping it. I also don't think, like, in cases of blasphemy, I don't think they actually punish the person because they're offended. They do it, like, you're offended for a bit, and then they do it to teach other people a lesson on what not to do.
To make an example.
Yeah. I think because of Corona, like, the news was just shoved under the rug and not spoken about as much as it should have.
Well, I mean, this all happened in November of last year, so it should have been covered, in my opinion. But I think the other thing is it's like even just passers-by who wanted to help people. Like there were people who were giving out flowers to the protesters. They were shot or imprisoned. There were bodybuilders who were jumping in front of people to spare them being killed, and they were killed. It's things like that that makes it really, really gross. And the other thing is that the Zoroastrian and the Baha'i minorities in Iran are also being persecuted. There's plans for a railway or a railroad to be built through a Zoroastrian graveyard, which is just super disrespectful. There are Zoroastrian areas in Iran that are, under annexation right now, who, they don't want to be interfered with.
Yeah.
And it's just really gross and really disgusting that none of this is being properly covered or spoken out against.
So, and then the other thing that this user has said about this is that after something like this happens, that of course the regime tries its hardest to erase not only the person's life, but also the accomplishments and legacy of our people. So, they do their best. So this person was working on that, desalination process, and then they do their best to, erase any trace of that this person was doing good.
Basically, the government just doesn't want to take blame for anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has a lot to do with actually admitting that they were in the wrong, especially if they kill younger citizens who are bringing change. It just looks bad on them, and that's all they care about. I think even with the plane that was shot down, the Ukrainian plane, they never really took accountability for it.
No.
There was never a sorry out there. I think they blamed America for it again.
And there was another plane that they took down, actually, one that was leaving for Canada or something, and there were 127.
That's Zara, because that's the very next one. So it's not the Canadian one. You're talking about a Ukrainian plane that was shot down.
So it was a Ukrainian plane that came from Canada, stopped in Iran, and then was going to Ukraine. And there were Iranian citizens who were Canadians as well.
Okay, then that probably is the same one, because that's the very next thing in this thread is January of 2020, Iran shot down a plane of 176 passengers flying out to Canada. It took the Islamic Republic days to admit what they'd done. The families of the dead couldn't even mourn in peace. Candles lit on the street for them were stomped and destroyed by Revolutionary Guards. And then she mentions here a specific couple, Pane Gorgi and Arash Porzarabi, were newlyweds that were on that plane and were killed.
Yeah, so Iran shot down the plane in rebel. They were meant to be fighting. They're meant to be firing nuclear to the U.S. camp base, because this was right after Trump killed Qasem Soleimani. Yeah. So that was in protest. So where I come from, we're Shias, so we're quite tied in with what Iranians believe, the majority of the Iranians. So in Tanzania, in my community, people were mourning Qasem Soleimani, and they were like, America is going to get it. America is going to feel America is going to get something in return. You'll see it's going to happen. And I'm like, the whole of America? What are you talking about? Nobody complained when the ISIS leader was killed. No one complained. Why are you complaining when Qasem Soleimani is killed, who was basically somebody who, one, was a tyrant, killed a lot of Americans in, I think it was the Syria war. It was in Syria where they killed a lot of Americans, and a lot of civilians as well, and was a tyrant in the government as well. Mm-hmm. So nobody actually highlighted all of that. And they didn't even admit that they were trying to shoot the American base. And they did shoot the American base, by the way. But no deaths were recorded, because a sensible thing to do after killing a general, a general something. What general was he? He was a general in Iran. So after killing that, especially because the president and people in power basically went America is going to face our retaliation. The smartest thing to do was actually move out American troops from Iraq and their bases. So I think they were already under hiding. So not many Americans were actually hurt when the American base was attacked after the plane was shot. I think, yeah, it was after the plane was shot. So it is crazy that I think they were gracefully saved by COVID because it did make the news that longer. The protests went on until January when Qasem Soleimani was killed.
Yeah.
Even though it started in November, and then that was already like very, very hard on everybody else. And then obviously they shut down the plane, and then coronavirus happened. And now when it's like finally kicking in and slowing down is when people are actually talking about it again. At least that's what I think.
And as I said, there's just one more from this thread that I want to mention, and I want to get onto the other thing that this user had linked to. But did you bring enough for the whole class? I'm just messing with you. But
I actually used to feed my university teachers because I couldn't stop munching in class. And I'm like, do you want some? Because everybody would look at me and I'm like, I can't stop eating. It's how I gather information as well. And I'm like, here, eat it.
Well, and actually, that was stupid of me to make some kind of dumb joke, given what I'm about to say, because this next one, that this person, Samaya Shabazi, was executed in Iran for killing a man who was trying to rape her. I mean, that just blows my mind. I mean, do either of you know anything about this? Or again, was it you were just made aware of it the other day, Faye?
You just made aware of it.
Right now.
I mean, we already knew that Iran has a bit of a fucked up way of dealing with rape victims, but when you see the case-by-case outcomes of specific people, it's really, really fucked up. I don't know how to process that a woman was trying to save her life, save her virginity, whatever you want to call it, and they killed her for that. It's really gross.
So technically, women face severe punishments than men do for adultery. So I would imagine there's a high percentage of women getting raped as compared to men by the opposite gender. I know a lot of boys get raped as well by men, but there are not many men that get raped by women. There is a percentage. But in the time when obviously women are still made to be submissive, and the rules were created for stoning, rape was not accounted for, and it was just considered to be adultery. So they thought that the woman had also engaged in consensual sex. So
the concept of consensual sex doesn't really exist.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. So that's why even marital rape is not really actually punished. Yeah. It's not punished in the hadith. At least I don't know of it. I don't know if you've heard differently anywhere.
No, as far as I'm aware, it's actually endorsed.
I mean, there is some crazy, this organization, the NIFB, the new International Fundamentalist Baptists, a couple of the people that are, that are the preachers in that religion, the upper echelons of that religion. I think the one I'm thinking of right now is Stephen Anderson. He claims that it is impossible for a husband to rape his wife. So
Islam pretty much has the same narrative.
What's that?
Islam pretty much has the same narrative.
Yeah, it just blows my mind that people, so apparently when you get married, your wife is your property. You can do whatever you want to her in Islam and in the eyes of some people in Christianity. Now, this other link that this user had, she says, Muslims, the same people who cry about being oppressed in the West and preach Sharia law, decided to dox someone who lived in a country where people are persecuted for blasphemy. So here's a thread of them being extra peaceful during their holy month. And
this isn't the first time also that this has happened in the last few weeks.
And okay, and here's what this is. She has shared a thread of people putting this hateful stuff out on out on Twitter. This one user responds to her by saying, "Follow the rules of the country you live in or get out." What the hell is the matter with y'all? Practice what you freaking preach. That was a response to this other person responding to their tweet said good. They were happy to hear what had happened to these people, and they also say you obey the law or get out. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. There's some form of bigotry when us included and a lot of the world condemns China's approach to how they treat Muslims, and then still not see the bigotry that
it's double standards.
Exactly, it's double standards. They don't see the oppression or the revocation of human rights they impose on other minorities or civil human rights in their countries. So the whole follow the law of the country. Well, if you have very stupid laws and they're against human rights, it should definitely be protested. And I think the misconception is that a lot of people go like, oh, but the West don't even have that right, or the West had just gotten women's rights like 80 years ago. Yeah. But at the same time, we're not saying the West already has it right, but we have the position to move it. Every day, policies are being formed. Every day, people are protesting and trying to make things better in some ways, in most ways, I would think, in a democratic world where people can vote, put their opinion forward, and actually make it a more progressive environment for others as well. So it is kind of really stupid when people go like, follow the laws of your land, don't blaspheme, or you will be killed, and that is absolutely fine.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then here's somebody posting on Twitter, telling a person, you're done for. Not only have we archived tweets from both of your accounts, we have video footage of everything. We have already contacted Kuwaiti law enforcement through me, a Saudi, and more than 3 Kuwaiti nationals. So here these people are going out of their way to dox these individuals and to reach out to law enforcement, knowing what could happen to them. So I don't understand that.
Faye, is this the same one of the girl reciting the surah?
I'm not sure. The TikTok video.
Yeah, I think so. The surah that she wrote, the Tunisian girl.
This is not the same thing. This is a different thing. But you can share that story if you want.
Oh yeah. I think it was a Tunisian girl who wrote a surah, so a verse. Sorry, no, a chapter.
A chapter, yeah.
It was meant to be funny. So she talks about COVID, how nobody can save you from it. Slaves and masters are all the same. Everybody gets it. You're not free from it and whatnot. And she wrote it in a way that was quite, it was meant, if you translate it, it was meant to be classical Arabic as well. So she tried mimicking the language. But people took so much offense to it because she presented it in a format that was kind of similar to the Quran.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't seen the format?
No.
She wrote it in Arabic, and then is it David Wood, who's a Christian ex-Muslim convert? I think it's David Wood.
Was David Wood a Muslim at one time?
No, maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, or maybe it's a different person. Sorry. No, sorry, it's not David Wood. Oh no, it is David Wood. It is the American missionary. Sorry. Oh no, I think
he was a Muslim.
Yeah, I think he knows, like, because he recited it in, like, he mimicked it. I don't think he was Muslim. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But he recited it in the way how you would recite the Quran, and it was kind of funny. So yeah, it was meant to be mimicking the Quran, and that's what she was punished for. I don't know if they've caught her. I can't, or if they have lawyers, but I know some of the ex-Muslims were working with it. I don't know how far it has gone.
So just real quick, as an aside, I need to respond to something in the chat because one of our most stupidest viewers that pops up every now and then, Sky Out, is in the house. If you haven't seen any videos with Sky Out in it, please go look at Nakasuchi's archive here on the Rage, and you will get lots of lols listening to Sky Out. But he's engaging someone in the chat and says that do you know the difference of Muhammad and Jesus? I don't think you do. Not the same God. So not only does he think that Muhammad's a god, where the hell that came from, but actually they are the same God. Okay, it's the God of Abraham. And as a matter of fact, I think it's the first 4 chapters of the Bible are in the Quran. So Sky Out, go get some education and then come on back and join us, would you? And then just one more of these I want to read out, and then like I said, I will put in the description, both of these Twitter threads, the links to them, so that you can go look the whole thing over, because there's quite a few on the first one and quite a few more on this one that we're not going to read the whole thing.
Yeah, I do want to say that do have some discretion, because some of the footage is quite gruesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And on that first thread, like I had mentioned, and I don't think even if I had the ability to screen share, I would have screen shared that little video snippet, because it showed in graphic detail this person that was dead, and it's a horrible thing. But someone here calls out the same fellow that has been in a couple of these different tweets I've been reading. This person says peaceful Islam murders everyone who says it isn't peaceful, and I think what they meant by that, they murder everyone, so that doesn't speak to Islam being peaceful. And this person responds back, careful or you'll be next. And I would tell you to take the shahada, but it's too late now. The person responds back to them. All right, now this one, you tell me what this is saying. My father is the head governor of security in Kuwait. I will be taking this to, now that I'm reading, I will be taking this to him first thing. I will promise to ruin you and get your citizenship revoked for blasphemy. Unfortunately, revoking someone's citizenship is like not the worst thing that will happen to that person if they report them to the authorities. I mean, they can wind up dead.
I mean, technically, isn't it illegal to leave a person stateless? And if they were born there and their families are from there, how are they going to just revoke a citizenship?
Well, right, and you would think that the UN would have something to say about something like that, but
yeah, the girl, the Tunisian girl. Sorry, just to bring it back, I was just looking at the news. The Tunisian girl who wrote that verse is actually in jail, so she was caught and she's in jail. There is no news on it so far.
Just real quick, and I know neither of you have ever been inside of a prison, but is there anything you can tell us about what prisons in those type of countries are like? Is there anything that either of you know about?
It's not good. In Saudi, there are 12, I think, Muslim feminists who have been jailed, tortured, raped, harassed for years now. Sohail Arabi has been in prison for over 7 years. He's currently going through a hunger strike. It's not great. That's as much as I can say. I don't know to what extent, but significantly worse than it is here in the West.
Yeah, that was my impression too. That's why I asked, because I of course, being in prison in any country isn't a good thing, but I do know here in this country that prisoners have access to TV and they can order snacks and things like that. I can't imagine that's happening in some of these other countries.
I think Saudi wouldn't be horrible, but they would keep the women and the men separate, obviously. But at the same time, like if a woman is assaulted by her family, the two choices she has is either go back to the family or you go in a women's shelter where you pretty much can't leave. Like that is your new place. And because you don't have a mahram, so a legal guardian, you can't leave. I think now it might be different. But like last year, or I think the year before, when I was talking to a Saudi girl, and I was like, and she was going through harassment with her family. And I'm like, what would you do next? She's out of the country now, but she was telling me what it's like being in that women's shelter. You basically can't leave. You're stuck there. And nobody would marry you. Obviously, like your life ends there.
Wow. So we're going to move on to the interview portion of the show with our guest, Zara Kay. And as has happened the first several episodes, Faye will be conducting that interview because Zara is basically Faye's sister from another mother.
Except she's a Salafi.
Except what now?
She's a Salafi. She's a Sunni. I'm a Shia.
Yeah, we back when I was a Muslim and still kind of now, we never considered them Muslim, so it's fine.
Throwing shade at one another already. All right.
Yeah.
But before we go on to that, I just want to thank people for coming by. I see Junk Shop Library is here. That's another person I met today. Jeremy Pace, one of our regulars, is here today. Nakasuchi, of course, is out there in the chat. He helped us open the show. And let's see here. Let me scroll down. Now here's someone, Bikash Srivastafa. And I'm sure.
Yeah, he's a follower of mine.
That's a follower of Faye's. Thank you so much for coming by. Uri Bench is here. They were there yesterday when we premiered my poem about religion. And I thank you very much for the good things you had to say about that. A British Pakistani atheist is here. Maynard Save, smoke weed every day. He's here. And let's see. There was a couple other people. I don't want to miss anybody and be like I'm playing favorites or anything. Marcus Tanbeck, In Morte Veritas is here. Kent Hoven CPA, longtime watcher of the show, and as I mentioned earlier, our favorite nut job apologist Sky Out is in the house. Thanks for coming by, Sky Out. We got to have you on the show again because we haven't had a very funny stream in a while. So Richard, my brother, my other brother, Richard Matson, is here, and I just want to mention too that a week from today we will be joined. And this is their Twitter handle. We will be joined by exMuslim Somali voices.
Halima's going to be on.
And the week after that, as a matter of fact, because I got to book through the 24th, the week after that, a person from, and again, this is their Twitter account, a person from Leaving Islam will be here.
Oh, I love that person. I absolutely love that person.
I've spoken to them, but we're aware of them.
Yeah. And I think I think it was Leaving Islam, said that they're known as Ali. And they said that I could say that.
Cool. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I should say the name. That's why I'm like, I know them.
Yeah, they said because Ali is just so generic that they said that, we could use that name. But good decision there to not say it until you knew it was okay.
I have learned from like the impromptu name thing because I know people by name and I don't like calling them by their alias. So I'm like, oh hey, and no. Yeah,
I mean, and it's just the things that can happen to somebody that if you out them in some of these countries, it's horrible. I mean, as I've said many times, atheists in this country want to talk about how they're treated, but go live in one of these Muslim countries and find out what happens if you're known to be an atheist. Also, David Worley's here. Thank you so much for coming by, David. And we are going to now turn this show over to Faye the Most Gracious, and she is going to interview her buddy, Zara Kay, about when the time that she was a Muslim and her journey out of Islam and all of that. And they've had many discussions, so I will weigh in if I decide I have a question, but other than that, we're going to let them handle this next portion of the show. Take it away, Faye.
All right. Thank you. So first things first, I've missed you. I haven't seen you in so long. I think I haven't seen you all fucking year. What's been going on? Like
I
I've
saw
been
you for
in.
your birthday.
Yeah, that I think that's the last time. Is that the last
Because
time we saw each other?
yeah, because then
No,
like 3 weeks later, COVID hit, or maybe like at the March event.
no. I saw you at the March event. I think that was the
Mm,
last time I saw you.
yeah.
I think we saw it. Thankfully, we saw everybody there.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, it's just been
Mhm.
me, myself, and I at home losing my mind. But how are you doing? How are you doing in isolation during this lockdown? I mean, you're in the same city as me. Realistically, it would be an hour, and I would be in your house. But how have you been doing?
Yeah, yeah, not too bad. A lot of our plans got cancelled. And looking for a job, but then also like keeping up with my charity because I feel like this is a great time to, instead of learning new skills, actually developing the ones that I already have,
Mhm.
giving Faithless Hijabi a bit more time, creating, because I feel like with lockdown, everybody's with their parents, like all the girls that we have on the chat. And it's really hard to keep in touch, but we're trying with either voice
Yeah.
messages or people will type and some of us will speak, revamping the website. So a lot happening on
Oh,
the
wait,
charity
hold on.
front.
Did you want to show the Discord?
Yeah,
We have a
actually,
Discord server.
yeah, actually, if you are an ex-Muslim woman, message me on Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's all I have. And I'll do a quick verification, and then I will send you a link for the Discord chat. It's basically other ex-Muslim women. Some of them are agnostic, some of them are curious Muslim, but mostly people are open to listening to others, disagreeing, and then going like, okay, well, this is how I see it, this is how you see it. It's great. I think our issues, and this is how Faye and I also met, even if we came from completely different backgrounds and were raised completely differently, we
Hmm.
had some issues that were aligned. And I think the whole chat is about listening to the other person's story, relating with it, and everybody just nods and we're like, yeah, that happened to me. And it's so good because it's kind of like meeting um, like like a similar person or another you who was raised differently in a different part of the country, like in the different part of the world,
Hmm.
and is in a different situation, but we all come together and it's a sense of sisterhood, I guess. So
Yeah.
a lot of that is basically now on speed, going, developing, also writing my book now. Um, and
How's that
that's,
going?
yeah, I mean, it's like 7 out of 250 pages. At least 250 is my limit.
Okay.
Um, but a lot of it is I've been writing for the past year, but like just on my notes and not actually in the format of the books. I've got the format now. I have created a survey which I'll be sending you hopefully mid next week,
Okay.
and then 3 other people. And the idea is to basically document the journey.
Hmm.
Because when I started Faithless Hijabi, this was in 2018, a lot of the girls, who came to me were either living with parents, some of them had escaped, some of them are escaping or have, some of them are still in the closet. So the idea is that for the next 6 months, I'm still going to monitor like you, basically talking about how a person who has left Islam, a woman who has left Islam and coming from your background or you can find, I guess, happiness, what journey you're on, what is next for you. And basically, a lot of people, when they're, I think you and I can relate that when we first come out, we're so
Hmm.
scared. We feel like this is the end of the world. I'm never going to be happy. Anxiety is going to be my normal. Or like, this is it. Everything is done. Like, um, and I feel like a lot of times in distress, when we're down, it's really hard to look forward, especially
Hmm.
because people are like, but where is my representation? Or
Yeah.
like, how can a brown woman like me, and I'm also going to talk to a convert actually, but a brown woman like me, was left Islam, does not have a community, does not have a family, actually gain happiness out of it.
Hmm.
And I know that nobody has unlocked it, like nobody has a formula, but the idea is that the
A
more
learning
people,
experience, I think.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, the more people relate to you and know that, hey, we're all as, I guess we're all as uncertain. I don't necessarily want to say broken because I feel like we're perfectly growing, but we're all in the same boat and we're all figuring it out. I think
Hmm.
that's the goal with the book.
Okay. All right. That's good. Have you got a title for us? Can you reveal the title for us?
It's
Okay.
faithless. It's faithless hijabi.
Okay, all right. It would be a bit more dramatic.
I'm still sorry. Go on.
I was just going to say, I've heard of that.
Yeah, I want the book to be more, I think, relatable to other people. But the charity name was decided to be one outspoken, but also shocking as well, and then being relatable to other people. And I want the book to be the same. Obviously, there'll be a slogan, which I'm still kind of deciding. It's either based on honor-based. It'll either be something around honor-based abuse or the voices of the silenced ones.
And real quick before you two continue, I want to put this question up from the audience because as we go on further, I have less and less access to the previous posts. And David Worley asked, Zara Kay, what do you make of Shamima Bagun's situation?
So David, hi. And I recently just posted a review of the TV show Caliphate, and it was the same. I think that would actually give you more answers. But in terms of like what the movie was portraying and the recent attacks that I had on Instagram from younger people, and these were like from 14 to like 20, they were really young to hold that much hate in their hearts. And the movie kind of helped put pieces together on how women who are not particularly grown up in a religious environment end up being religious because they feel like they have this sense of protection towards their identity and keeping it going, who were then willingly going to fight for the Islamic State or to blow themselves up in the city that they're living, but they're all connected in this extremism because they're so compelled to protect it. And I think like where I grew up in Tanzania, we've never had that because nobody there was challenging our faith until like from my community, when I came out in public, a lot of people started attacking me. Like pretty much everybody who came through my profile has like attacked me or have started following me. But I was like the first one who came out from the community, and that put a lot of people's faith at test. So in Islamic schools, the kids were told to basically never talk to me, don't be like me. Like they literally would mention Zara Kay in the mosque and in the Islamic schools. They're like, I was a topic for their lectures. And I didn't know about it because I don't live there. And obviously they're not going to say it if my sisters are in the class, but the other classes actually talked about me and basically.
You became a case study.
Sorry?
You became a case study?
I became a case study. So they were like, do not be like her. She is wrong. She is misguided. And I think like with Shamima Begum's case, so until people started like you know, in a Western world, I feel like a lot of like there are challenges to your faith, especially because not everybody else is practicing it. And that's how you become more defensive, or they keep you insulated, or they keep you at home. So I think, Faye, you were raised quite differently, right?
Like, I was raised in a bubble is a nice way of putting it, but yeah. I was raised very, very isolated.
Yeah. So yeah, like, and for me, like my parents were like, yeah, we had curfews, but my brother and I had the same curfews. But like in the daytime, if I had to go out, if I had to meet friends, my parents never had that restriction. I think, in fact, for my birthday, my dad would go like, "Here's money, go take your friends out." Like they're like, "Just go out." So I guess in that way, I think because my family or the community around me never felt a threat to their identity, it was a bit more relaxed than a lot of people here in the West, like a lot of the communities here in the West who feel like their identities are at stake. I don't know if that answers your question, David, like in terms of like Shamima coming back for the stateless comment that I made, or how she grew up to be like that. I think one of my comments from the review was I would like to see what the process for de-radicalization is, because that would help then for me or everybody else to understand, have an informed opinion, or I think other people to contribute to that research, because we have a lot of money spent on that research. I think it's only fair that we have a bit more insight into how it works and whether we. Sorry, go ahead.
Personally, I would love to work in that and see how it works and see, like, I mean, I wouldn't say that I was de-radicalized because I was never like a jihadi, but I definitely had the sort of upbringing, like the sort of indoctrination that would eventually lead to that.
Yeah. Did you see
So
Caliphate at all, Faye?
no, I've been watching a lot of Family Guy. I've been relaxing. But but before we like delve into other topics and start taking questions, I think I would like to ask you, and I mean I've heard this 100 times, but just for the peanut gallery, how did you leave Islam? What were the reasons for leaving Islam for you?
I always get this question every time, and with the Daily Atheist, one thing I said was every time I'm asked, I'm also like compelled to think about it more. And even after that podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have splashes of realization at different times where I
Yeah.
had rebelled against it. So hijab
Yeah.
being one, but having a conversation with my mom at a young age, I think when I was 14, 15, when I was like, I want to remove my hijab, and she was like, well, your dad's never going to allow it. So she couldn't say no. So she's like, your dad's never going to allow it. So it really depends on your husband and whether he
Mm-hmm.
would allow it. And I'm like, at that point when I was like, oh, okay. And in my head at a young age, I was like, so I need to find a husband who's obviously a Muslim, but who's also relaxed, who would listen to music, but is also like religious enough for me. So it was so confusing. But there
Yeah.
were these little glimpses that made me feel like, why am I being treated as a property? Or
Mm-hmm.
why is the hijab imposed on me? Why do I not have a choice? Um, and
Why
growing
does
up,
it
that
depend on somebody else to tell you?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was like, and growing up, it was like bits and pieces that started unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I officially left was in about 2017 when I first told my family.
Mm-hmm.
And before then, it was a lot of thinking process where I was like, well, I don't technically believe in God because I haven't prayed. And I feel like we have a special connection, but I really have not relied on him for anything. So,
Mm-hmm.
in times of distress, be it exams, losing a family member, breakups, whatnot, it was always me by myself. So I never felt like I needed him.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was slowly when I read the Quran and I was reading on about verses because I was having a disagreement on gay marriage. I was reading about verses that are peaceful in the Quran with people who clearly disagree in your faith. Like, me and you could be on completely separate things, but surely there should be peace between us. And I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find any. I couldn't find any that said that if people disagree with you on your faith. So clearly I did not like Islam's position on gay marriage. And I obviously
Mm-hmm.
did not know about it earlier because I was like, yeah, you guys want to get married, do that. I'm not gay, but you are perfect. I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, like, basically reading those verses was when I was like, I was anxious for 2 weeks. I cried. I was just like, I don't know if this is me leaving Islam, but I don't agree with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, months later was when I told my family, and I'm like, by the way, I'm an agnostic atheist. I definitely don't believe in Islam. Don't know about God. I mean, I think maybe there's something out there or maybe there isn't. And then a few
Mm-hmm.
months after that when I was like, yeah, no, I do not want to believe in God and I reject God. So I'm an
Mm-hmm.
anti-theist in that way, where I'm like, be it a Hindu God, be it a Christian God or a Greek God,
Any
it's not
kind.
for
Yeah.
me. Yeah, it's not for me. I disagree, and I feel like I've seen the harmful ideas that have come about religion or God in general, because I feel like that empowers people to act in a way that they think is protecting their omniscient and powerful God.
Benevolent and all-powerful
Yeah.
God. Yeah. Okay. I do want to ask how your family reacted. As far as I know, you're still on pretty good terms with your family. But what was the initial reaction and how is it now?
Yes, the first people I actually told and admitted were my family, and that was over WhatsApp. Obviously, nobody called me to verify or check, and they're like, so you don't believe in a God at all, not even like a Christian God or like like any other God, like just no. And I'm like, no, I don't
Would
know,
that have
but
been
like,
better?
sorry.
Would that have been better?
I think that would have meant that I at least believe in God, and then I have taken Islam so wrong. So that would have been easier for them, in their opinion, or I think that's what they think, to bring me back to Islam. But they were like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. And, my parents would still talk about God, or like, when I had anxiety or panic attacks, and I was like, why don't you pray harder? Why don't you do this? And I'm like, I don't think you realize that even if I pray, and even if like technically I recite Arabic verses, it doesn't make me feel better. So I think at that point they were in disbelief quite a bit. And then when I went public with my views and being an activist, and mind you, I was never planning to be an activist. I only went and I did a podcast, and I wasn't even blaspheming. I just said, this is why I left. This is this, and that's it. I didn't even know much of history or the Sunni side of it as much. Only because I didn't specifically think
You didn't
that.
grow up with that, right?
No, I didn't grow up with that, and I didn't think that we were so different. Like, I didn't know what Sahih Bukhari was at all.
Yeah, you guys have different books.
Yeah. So I didn't know what that was at all, but like the mere concept of like slavery, women, whatnot, I spoke about. I'm like, this doesn't feel right to me. This is why I don't get along with Islam, and just for that, I was really attacked. And because I was attacked, I became an activist to then defend, one, my right to be who I am, and to not be criticized and put down using that, but also. I think I've always, I guess, a social justice warrior thing. I've always wanted to help other women do it, and I've always gone like, "This is not fair. Like, you cannot treat me or other people like."
That is your whole personality.
Yeah, I'm like,
very contrarian.
I'm more like, you cannot say that to me, and I could do that. I think my tweets are also a reflection of who I am in person, and when you talk to me, my passion, part of anger, and that espouses in the same way that it is online and in person. So I'm like,
I don't know if the way that you tweet is a complete.
Since you mentioned being attacked, I just want to get. Nakasuchi had a question a while back. I thought this kind of dovetailed with you mentioning being attacked. Nakasuchi had asked, Zara or Faye, have you ever been attacked physically for leaving Islam?
Do you want to go first? Yeah,
I've gotten close. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But not. I mean, aside from family members, not really.
I think for me was the time that we went to Hyde Park, where he wasn't going to attack me, but he definitely said those words, and he definitely recorded a video, and he was basically, I was so anxious after that. And by the way, and then when we went to the restaurant to eat, I came out and I saw him, and I freaked out. But I think I was with, I don't know who I was. I was with Ali.
You were with Sam, I think.
Yeah, I was with somebody. I was with Sam, so I felt better. But then I basically just left and I went home. But I saw him after, so it could have happened. But yeah, I think almost. And the police couldn't do anything about it because he didn't know my address. But they said, please don't go to Hyde Park. Like, we get your passion, but I don't think they can do anything about it. Because I feel like I don't know if this is true. Maybe this is something that's built up in my head. But if a Muslim woman would have had the same reaction to a white supremacist or to somebody who,
or anybody threatening to attack somebody, like any demographic like that, it would have been a much bigger deal. Do you still have the footage of that?
Yeah, I have everything.
Did you share it?
Yeah, I didn't share it, but I basically played it while they called me, and I'm like, these are the exact words.
You know what? Now that we know that the police can't do anything about it, we should share it.
Yeah, so I think I said, fuck your God, because we were just walking and somebody came in there like...
You had a massive argument with that.
Yeah, but the thing was that we were just walking and he basically came up to us and he went like, you're not Muslim? Where are you from? Are you from Pakistan? Are you from India? Are you some Arab? And I'm like, we just didn't respond. And Sam looks Pakistani and he wasn't sure about me. And basically he was like, how can you be Pakistani and not a Muslim or not believe in God? And I was like, I don't give a shit about God. I don't really fucking care. And then I think Sam got really angry. He's like, it's always one group of people that always threaten others for not believing in God or for saying something that is in disagreement to them. And I think, that's when he said, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck your God. Like, fuck Allah. I don't give a shit about him. You have no right to talk to me like that. And you have no right to threaten me. And then he basically just went like, our Arab women are prettier than you. Like, what do you have? And I'm like,
lower your gaze.
I'm like, in my head, I'm like, what was this even about? Like, it's not even about the way. Like, it was just like, and then basically I started recording it because I have now learned, and I'm still learning, that when people are vile to me or when they're angry, I want it all on tape. That's it. Like, and it gets uploaded to the cloud immediately. And only because like I want that evidence. And he basically went like,
maybe blur his face, but we should share it.
Yeah, but like he was like, so I started recording it, and then he started recording it as well. And he went like, these people here, they say that all Muslims are terrorists. And I'm like, we never fucking said that. We never said that. We just said that there's only one group of people that always intimidate us in Hyde Park because we're not, like, they come and threaten us because we don't believe in God and we don't agree. And especially being an ex-Muslim, it's like a rejection of faith, not just a disagreement in faith.
And saying something like,
if you were in Edgware Road, I would have bashed you, or you would have been bashed. And I was like, for saying what you were. And I'm like, and I went to the police, and the police are like, we're gonna take a report, but we obviously can't solve it now, and we can't do anything because he hasn't hurt you. But let's talk about it outside this. And honestly, the police hated being at Hyde Park.
Oh,
they hated their job at Hyde Park. He's like, I have a family, I have things to do, but here I am watching people debate. And he was Irish, and he was an old man. Like, he wasn't like a young Irish who's an atheist. I feel like he was there during like very like where religion was very crucial in Ireland. And I was like, yeah, I'm like,
the Irish do hold their religion quite dear. But to return to the topic, so your family's initial reaction was kind of like, stop doing this.
When I was an activist, they're like, stop doing it. And like when I had that post supporting gay marriage, my dad's like, take it down. And I'm like, no, and he's like, so do you believe that people who got married are doing right? And I'm like, they're doing right. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, but that's not even the point of the post. The point of the post is they should not be attacked, no matter what I believe or what you believe in. And then my dad just hung up on me. And my dad is like a character where he won't engage with you as much. So when he's pissed off, he'll just hang up. And he doesn't want to get into conflict. Like, he cannot handle conflict at all. So he's just kept his distance, and he still does, which is fine, because I am like that as well. I mean, I usually get into conflict, but with my family, I'm just like, we're just going to avoid it and not talk about it. And that's how we solve issues. So that's how we've been. We just don't talk about it anymore. And we're like, okay, cool. You want to do this, you do that. And I'm like, they're just not involved in any part of my decision making. And now they know that no matter what I post, they can't talk to me about it, even if they disagree. And like, technically, we just don't talk about religion. But recently, like basically yesterday, I saw a video of my niece. Now, I think she is 4 years old, or 5 at most, 4 or 5. She's wearing a hijab. So she's basically like, so she's wearing a hijab, and she was reciting a chapter of the book, the shortest chapter, I guess. Or the second shortest chapter. And she, I didn't listen to after Bismillah, I stopped. Because I couldn't take it. I was like, hijab, and then the book, and I'm like, I can't do it.
It is Ramadan, so I don't know what else you're
I think, like, in my head, I really wanted to protest against it, and I was like, I don't think I can't do this. I basically just deleted it from my phone and then just like waited it out so that other conversation can take over. But that, I guess, I can't be an activist with my family because I know that the journey that we're both in, we're going to lose a lot of our friends that were possibly like some of our close friends, and I think we just have to ignore it.
I did want to ask, just a tangent a little bit, that there is a discussion about whether or not raising children in religion is abusive or anything like that. But I'm not entirely I don't know what you think about that, first of all. And second of all, if you do think that it is, how do we counter that? Because there's no way of policing parents on how they raise their children. Not really, anyway.
Yeah, I think in public spaces, like in terms of fasting
Hmm.
and whatnot, I think there are a lot of liberal Muslim parents who won't make their kids do that.
Hmm.
But what happens is a lot of other religious kids will bully those kids into doing it. So that's how they feel pressured. I think we
Hmm.
need to train teachers, especially during the month of Ramadan, on
Yeah.
how to counter it. So I think as long as I think we can do it in different ways as well, right? In public spaces, um, like things like fasting, hijab is one, but like things that will affect the health of kids
Hmm.
should be handled in a more mature way. And I don't know how you were like. Did you go to an Islamic school like from primary?
Not from primary, but from secondary, I did. Yeah.
Okay, so we had like from primary. I was in an Islamic school, basically in grade four. Yeah, grade four is the last grade that you'll have in a mixed school, and now
Hmm.
that has changed. It's all girls now,
Yeah.
but even then you'd have Islamic studies where
Hmm.
non-Muslims will have other religious studies or not, but I was in an Islamic school. So I think even like not having that would be great. Or even if
Yeah.
you do have it, teach them about all religions.
Hmm.
And I think make it a more educational piece than a more indoctrination
I do feel that
subject.
a lot of people have a hard time balancing that, especially if they're, for example, our religious studies in Islamic school was obviously all based around Islam. But even now, as an educator, we work with students, and I sit in on a lot of religious education classes, and I do
Mhm.
find that if the teacher is religious in some kind of way, they do have a kind of bias
Mhm.
towards their own religion. Um, so I think it's difficult to navigate for people who are religious to be teaching something like that. But I agree. I think that in public spaces, in schools and things, it certainly shouldn't be endorsed. It should just be taught as, this
Yeah.
is what people believe, as opposed to this is what you should believe.
Yeah.
Um,
I definitely
so
don't think we should have faith schools mixed with academics, and that faith schools should be a Saturday or Sunday thing.
mm,
And then
agree.
actually have that separately in as many states or countries as we can. Obviously, not
Mm,
completely revoking that you can't teach them at all, but you can separate it to
yeah,
accommodate to all
I
other people as well.
I'm completely against faith schools. I think that it definitely should be like extracurricular kind of thing.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, I kind of agree with that. But anyway, so now you've said that the way that you've kind of kept ties with your family is generally by avoiding subjects, but I know you're quite close with your father and your brother. So,
Mhm.
what other things do you talk about?
So
Aside from, I know that that might sound crazy to other people, but when you're in a
yeah.
Muslim family, Islam comes up a lot
Yeah.
in everything.
So it's like the part of everything you do, whether it's staying
Mm.
at home, whether it's going to the mosque, sorry, whether it's going to school, or like whether the way kids are taught, or like whether
Any
we all talk about,
milestone as well, like
yeah,
marriage, birth, death,
yeah, or like
everything.
even getting a job or anything where they're like, oh, we're gonna pray for you, or maybe
Mm.
you shouldn't jinx it, maybe you should recite this, or this is how I'm going
Do
to
this
pray for
prayer.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot. It's very, very centered around religion. Even like if you eat differently or if you eat at a different time, you'll probably get a few hadiths thrown at you saying, "Oh, well, Imam Ali said this," and I'm like,
Be sitting like this. You should be using this many fingers. All of that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not very close to my dad. I'm actually closer to my brother. So
Mm.
my brother and I think he's now being more open to understanding me,
Mm.
and he still thinks it's Muslims and not Islam, which I feel like is a really good discovery for him, because now he's realizing, hey, there are people who are horrible and they used to
Mm.
be my neighbors. And now he's realizing that the
Mm.
way we were taught Islam is different. But besides from like Islam, he's also
Mm.
like recognizing a few toxic parenting behavior. So he's a father himself, and he lost his youngest daughter, and he has always struggled. Like, it's been 3 years, but he still struggles with completely moving on, which is understandable. But he's come a long way. That this year, during her death anniversary, I asked him, "How are you doing?" And he's like, "They say time heals," and I think it's helping me move on and accepting things. But also, like, other decisions that he has, he's being more open to it. So he's moving into a new house, for instance, and and he doesn't technically have a prayer room, but they have a spare room, which will be a prayer room. But at the same time, like, it's mostly like me telling him, and I'm like, maybe you should furnish it as well. That way it's not just a prayer room.
Oh, did you have a prayer room that was just completely empty?
Not in my house, but in his current house, he does. I think he does. But some people have it, so it's like clean, empty, like it's only for prayers and when you sit down, like kind of like a meditation room. So I think in that way he's slowly beginning to be more open about it. But even the way, like, I was never allowed to wear shorts at home, because my dad was there. So I wore long pants, even pajamas were long pants and whatnot. And I think there was an instance where my brother walked home, and when my brother got home, and he walked in the house, and my niece was wearing shorts, and my brother's wife, was basically like, "Hey, go change your dad's hair." And my brother's like, she doesn't have to. I'm her dad. And that's when the
Which is
first
the
time.
reaction you should have.
Yeah, so that's when the first time it struck him, and he's like, "This really bothered me." And I'm like, "Do you wanna hear about my childhood then? Like, do you wanna hear about how even when I came from overseas, I wasn't allowed to wear this even at home, like three-quarters or shorts or anything, because my dad was there, and it was night." Like, because you tell people that you can't do this, it's when they actually think about it. When you go like, "Oh, your dad is there, you can't wear shorts." And I'm like, "But why?" Like, it's because we were raised to be as sexual beings and sexual objects as, like, little girls. Men are not raised the same way. So girls are meant to sit a certain way. Obviously, with men, they're raised to be less attached to their emotions. But with women, it's like, you need to sit a certain way. You should have this motherly sentiment. You should care. You should clean, because you always want to, like, serve food. And there's just this little things that basically kind of define your role in the
You have
house.
to have long hair, you have to wear this kind of clothes. If you're gonna look for a job, it should be in childcare. Like
Yeah. Well, for me, it was like I had short hair until I was like 8 or 10ish, and I used to cry to have long hair because my mom's like, "You're really young. You're not going to be able to comb them or tie them up." And I don't want to take, like, I have other kids. I don't have time to just do your hair. And I remember when I had long hair and I cut them really short, my dad would get really annoyed. He's like, "But you cut your hair." And now he's more open to it, where all my other sisters have short hair, or they have like a side that is like shaved, and then like long
Yeah,
hair, like a short bob-ish hair now. So it's
yeah.
kind of changing in that way. Like, a lot of the roles are changing,
Didn't
not
your dad
completely.
tell me a story where your dad took your sister to get a tattoo or something?
Yeah, so it was funny. Well, basically, my brother had gotten a tattoo. He was the first one to get a tattoo, and my dad flipped. It was like he wasn't going to kick him out, but he was really angry. And obviously he knew it couldn't be reversible. And then my brother got initials, and then obviously he married somebody with a different initial, and then a few years ago he did his old tattoo, like he made it bigger, designed it, whatnot. And then my sister wanted a tattoo. This is my younger sister. So I got it 2 years ago. I got one on my shoulder, chestish, and my sister wanted a tattoo, and they were in India. So my dad traveled to India. My younger sister traveled as well with him. They were doing some medical checkups. And then, my younger sister is like, "Oh, I really want to get a tattoo." And my older sister's like, "No, you can't get it, blah, blah." And obviously my mom is always listening to my older sister. That's their dynamic. Like, they're always in agreement. So my older sister thinks like the older generation as well. And I think it was my brother was there as well, and I think what happened was she just sends us a photo of the tattoo, and I'm like, "Haha, it's a sticker, you kidding?" And she's like, "Nope." And I'm like, "Oh, what did dad say?" And he's like, "He actually came with me. He was there with me." And I'm like, "What?" And I think it was basically my brother who
That's
vouched.
nice.
Yeah, it was my brother who vouched for my sister. He's like, she's either going to do it without you, or you can be a parent who's like, here, this is your life, you're an adult, you can go do it. And that be supportive. That way she can trust you to then help her in her future difficult decisions. So that was a big turnaround with my family. So I think
it was. I remember you telling me that story and me just sitting there like,
I was just like, I was like, what the fuck is happening?
for anyone who's confused, it's unheard of something like that happening, of your
Let it,
father going along with their little girl getting a tattoo.
yeah. So like my
Not even
sister's,
little girl, your daughter.
yeah, my sister's 20. My sister was 22 at the time, or 23 at the time, and I was like, what is this? So yeah, no, so they've changed quite a bit. And I think the idea is that with my brother, he's going through a divorce, a separation. And I have been like helping him on like how to be less patriarchal so usually men have all the rights in a divorce.
Yeah.
So they can give it whenever they want. They can do, I guess I feel like they can just basically not do right by the woman, by the wife or the
Yeah, if
ex-wife.
they choose not to, they
Yeah.
can do fuck all.
Yeah, and like with women, they just get paid by their partners a lot of money for like the rest of your life. Now with my brother, it was my sister-in-law currently does not work. So with my brother, it was me helping him kind of have a balanced view, helping him understand how, how much he should pay and where it ends and how it ends, and like how are you going to do parenting, and I guess dividing your assets and whatnot, which a lot of it is my brother's. At the same time, like a lot of their wedding presents are all hers, but it's in a brown family. Like there's a lot of this is mine, this is yours, this is mine, this is yours. And I was just like, it's just money. Like at the same time, I was like, it's just money. Like honestly, it's
You'll
not easy
have more
for her.
money. Yeah.
Exactly. So he's actually learning to actually grow up and like be a bit more insightful on like the other side.
Yeah.
Whereas my other family is like, whereas part of my family is like, no, you have to give her everything, and like, you have to take care of her and everything. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. She's being
No.
dependent, and she's not going to, and like, lives are going to move on. 5 years from now, he might meet somebody, or like 20 years from now, you can't keep paying for somebody. It's not fair. Um, but yeah, I think in that way they're evolving.
That's all good. I think that another interesting thing about you is that you've country hopped quite a lot. So, I mean, aside from you leaving Islam, you also had a very interesting excursion from moving place to place, and I think that that also developed your sort of questioning mind and how you left.
Yeah.
So do you want to discuss that a little bit? So you went
Yeah.
after your schooling in Tanzania, you actually moved to Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I was 16 and I went to college in Malaysia, and I think that was the first time that I saw a woman who had not worn a hijab and she was a Muslim. I had no idea you could do that. I was still so surprised. I was like, she's not wearing a hijab, but she's going inside this mosque or like this prayer room, and then she puts it on and then she takes it off. So she puts on the two pieces, she prays, she takes it up, and then she leaves. And I'm like, you can do that? Or like even the first time where I met somebody who was gay, not just flamboyant, but like somebody who had said they were gay. Obviously, Malaysia being a Muslim country, nobody was actually holding hands, but obviously, like, people had told me that, being gay means that you're with a man, like a man is with a man. And I'm like, oh, that's a thing.
Did you ever have any disagreements with that?
No, I just like I was until like 2016-ish. I was that person who would say, yes, if my friends are gay and they're having a wedding, yes, I'm going to go support them. And I'm going to be there. But at the same time, would I sign a bill that promotes gay marriage? I'm not sure. I don't have an objection to it. But then is God going to punish me if I do it?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of conflict. And I think my saving grace at the time was I've never had to vote until like last year. So I've never, or this year, earlier this year, I've never had to vote. So I think in that regard, I've never had to make that decision before. But I never really had a problem. I was not homophobic. I did not understand how a woman is attracted to another woman. I think it's the same. It's the same way where people who are gay or lesbians do not understand how a woman may be attracted to a man, or the other way
Mhm.
around. Like in my
Yeah.
head, it was just like I've
I
never
mean,
been
it makes
attracted to a
sense that
woman.
you wouldn't understand that.
Yeah,
Like that makes sense. I don't think anybody can hold you accountable for that.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people are scared to say things like that, actually.
yeah. I think for me, it was like I sat down with a friend that I had met at my workplace, and I'm like, "Can I ask you a few questions, but you can't get offended?" And he was Iranian. He is Iranian, sorry. And I'm like,
You really
um,
boxed him in there. Can I ask you a few questions and you can't get offended?
no, I was just like, I was like, I am honestly curious, but like, I really want to learn. And he
Mhm.
was like, yeah. And I'm like, so have you been with a woman? And he's like, not really. He had never touched boobs as well. So I'm like, so if you were in a place, I was like, if you were in a place where there were only women, would you have been attracted to them? And he's like, nope. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, so how did you know? And like, were you in Iran then? And I was more curious about what it was like being in Iran, where you wouldn't see a lot, like you would see people who were gay, but you wouldn't be
Mhm.
sure. And then, there was a journey for me to understand. And yeah, so it was quite different. Like when I first, like, I think it took honest conversations and I think a bit of humanity and empathy to actually go
Yep.
and then talk to people and be honest about it. And, I feel like Jeff Goldblum's question was like, it's just a question. You can't
Mhm.
get offended with questions. You can get
Yeah.
offended
It
with
made me
opinions.
really I don't know
It's
why it made me so angry, but it did make me really, really angry.
I think
Um,
I think it's because it fits into the cancel culture that
mhm.
we face as well, and we're
Yeah.
ex-Muslims, and even we are not allowed to talk to them. Like, imagine somebody who has no idea about the religion and then is asking in question, are we going to persecute people for questions? Like, curiosity should always be welcome.
I
That's how
think
you,
I think it's really sad actually that people are afraid to associate with us sometimes because
yeah,
we're not necessarily because we're bad people, but
yeah,
because of cancel culture and that these people are controversial because they've lived a certain way.
mm.
But I mean, aside from so you went from Tanzania to Malaysia, which was still a Muslim majority country, but I don't know. I don't know if it's fair to say that they're more moderate than Tanzania. I don't think that's
The more,
necessarily
yeah,
true.
for me, it was not only like moderation, but it was also like, you could go to a restaurant and that have alcohol, and I'd never been around alcohol. Or
But
you
did
could
you
go.
first try alcohol in Malaysia?
No, I first tried alcohol like a year after I was an atheist.
Okay.
So
A
I had
year
never.
after?
I think it was
Wow.
in
Okay.
2017ish. So it was
Mhm.
when I kind of knew. So it was in 2017 when I first tried alcohol, and I think it was end of 2017 when I first had bacon. So it was like none of that had ever
Okay.
tempted me. Like even with like things like losing my virginity and whatnot, it all happened to me for like the later years.
Mhm.
So I guess like in comparison to my friends who were still religious now and
Mhm.
weren't, then they all drank, smoked, and I was like, no, I'm good. And I never judged them, which is very interesting where now the tables are turned around
Mhm.
and they judge me. And I'm like, it's funny because 5 years ago or like 10 years ago, I think it was 10 years ago when I was in Malaysia, you were drinking every
Mhm.
night.
Yeah.
You were getting high, you were in coke, whatnot. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I didn't do any of that. And
Mhm.
like now you're judging me for saying something, not even do, and I'm like, even now I don't drink as much. I think Faye has been out with me a lot, and I'm like, I don't drink as much.
Yeah, she's one of the most boring people to go out with because she
Uh,
just
when I get
won't drink.
when I have days where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get drunk, but like,
Yeah, you'll have your moments, but I think the last few times that we've been like out, I think 9 out of 10 times you've not drank with
no,
us. You've just had water at a table of drunk people.
yeah,
If
and like,
anybody needs a designated driver,
yeah, and I don't really mind that. I actually quite enjoy it.
uh-huh.
At the same time, it's really funny how things have turned around. But
Yeah.
it in Malaysia, it was a lot of like what actually opened my eyes was meeting people from different cultures, race,
Mhm.
um, like and backgrounds, like country and the way they were like raised. Different Arabs were raised differently.
Yeah.
Different Muslims were raised differently. And like you'll see a lot of Saudi Arabians there who have a lot of money
Yep.
to spend, and they are dating Asian girls, but then they'll go home and then they'll get married to a virgin Arab. And that was always
Yeah,
the
they
case.
have
And I
like their
just
little Arab life.
exactly. So, that was always the case where I knew people who were engaged to somebody else and then had another girlfriend on the side. And I was like, I was there and I was like, oh, okay, well, I haven't even had sex. I don't even drink. And I was like a good
So
Muslim, but
pure.
I was so accepting of other people. Like I was like,
Yeah.
fine, okay, you do this. Like having two girlfriends or a fiance is like one unethical, but like to the other person because it actually causes harm. But like in terms of like drinking and stuff and smoking, and I'm like, I'll sit with you. I don't
Yeah.
really care, and I'm not going to like distance. So I think in that way it was really quite like that was my culture shock. Being away
And then
from
from Malaysia, you moved to a relatively
Sure.
mostly secular country, Australia.
Yeah.
So
Melbourne.
did that further culture shock you, or by that point?
No, I think by that point it was like, well, one, it was when I had removed my hijab properly and out, and I wasn't wearing it every day. It wasn't on my neck; it was just gone. But I was
Were
still
you
wearing long.
still like a namesake Muslim by that point?
Yeah, yeah. I still was. I went to the mosque. Like I'd go to the mosque once a year. Yeah, so I'd go to the mosque once a year, and otherwise, like I wouldn't pray at all. I would try praying, but I'd get distracted, and I'm like, okay, well, I did the actions. I technically finished it. But in terms of how you're meant to pray, like stopping your mind and focusing on the
Mentally, yeah.
words, or like even wanting to pray, or like not skipping a few words, I just go blah, 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 okay, done. Like, so I think I was still Muslim when I was introducing myself to other people. It would still be, yeah, I'm a Muslim, so I don't drink. And I think even after I left Islam, I was like, I just don't drink. I just don't want to. And I think Melbourne was fine. It was when I moved to Sydney and I worked for Google and, meeting different people, but they're your coworkers as well. I got to travel and I met some really brilliant people who I think it was somebody that I dated before who actually introduced me to Richard Dawkins. And then I found out about Sam Harris, and that's when I started. So 2016 was like a lot of my learning, reading a lot. And I was like, shit, I haven't believed in a while. And even Ali Rizvi's book, like I went to so because I knew Sam Harris,
Muslim.
yeah. So because I knew a lot about Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, and I was trying to buy a present, and I went to the bookstore. So, like, because that person was so interested in religion, I, technically went to the whole spirituality and religion area, and I saw the Atheist Muslim, and I sat down, and I wasn't even a big reader, sat down and read the first 10 pages there, and I'm like, I need to buy this book.
Wow.
Yeah, I just sat down and I'm like, this book is so good. Like, it was just like, because Ali Rizvi also comes from a Shia background. And I'm like, this person is speaking my story. He's a man, and he talks about how he had first encountered a Jew and he was scared. And like a few months before that, I had gone to Israel. And I was working in Tel Aviv, and when people came and I was like, oh, my name, they talk to me in Hebrew, and I'm like, I don't speak Hebrew, I'm from Australia, and they're like, oh, okay, and then they turn to English. Nobody had ever asked what my ethnicity was. They asked where I was from because I wouldn't speak Hebrew, but then at the same time, I would kind of put it out there, and I'm like, yeah, like Zara is an Arabic name. It's from a Muslim origin name. And they'd go like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. Like, they did not care in Tel Aviv. And I was so surprised because what I'd heard about Israel and Palestine, I honestly thought I would die there. Like, I honestly thought somebody would kill me there. And it's so bad that leaving that, like going to Jerusalem and leaving that place helped me put a lot of things in perspective. And then reading Ali Rizvi's book and relating back to my experience, I was just so ashamed to think that, oh my God, they were going to kill me because they were so nice. At the same time, like, it was like, because I'd lived in Melbourne and I was so used to people being friendly, and Israel and Palestine is not like that. People are not very friendly. They're not quite courteous as they are in the West. Or they're not very polite. They're quite direct to the point.
Kind of like how we are here in London, I think.
No, they wouldn't even stand in lines. Here you stand in lines. People didn't even stand in lines. And I was like, what is happening? Yeah,
how
they
do
wouldn't
they function?
They just go in. You just go in front. But I went into Israel and the West Bank being so anti-Israeli and pro-Palestinian, and I came out being quite centered, not anti either of them. And I actually had to think about what a one state or a two state would mean. And I'm like, there is no, like, if I had the authority, there is no way I could pick a side or like be able to choose what to be implemented because it was so complex.
Let's not get into this discussion.
Sorry.
This is a discussion that will get us in trouble. But no, I definitely see what you mean. But so would you say that you left Islam while you were in Australia then?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And would you describe it as a painful experience? Like, what kind of experience would you describe it as? Like, once you started identifying more as an atheist?
I think it wasn't admission to myself that was as painful as it is being labeled, categorized, attacked by a lot of the public. I think the painful part is basically even just talking to my family and not being able to agree on anything that is not just to do with religion, but even morals. So I think that is a painful part because you're a skeptic and you see the world very differently from a lot of the people, and you're an ex-Muslim. So there are people who are Christians that will take advantage of you, and then Hindus, and then, when you're like, I don't like your God either. So I think the painful part is actually people trying to paint you in a different picture than you are, than it was actually leaving the faith, because I feel like I was so detached from God that not once have I regretted my decision or that I would go in hell. And when a lot of people ask me, aren't you scared of hell? And I'm like, I haven't been for a while, because I've always been like, I've always felt like I've always done the right person.
Oh, I thought you meant I haven't been to hell for a while.
No, sorry, I haven't been scared for a while.
Okay.
I haven't been scared because I've always tried to do what is right by me and by others. So it never really scared me. I feel like the fear of hell should be when you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
And in the case of Abrahamic religion, it's always like breathing outside the house with your hair showing is wrong. So I feel like that was a different scenario than, like, I guess, the challenges that I have right now and moving forward.
I see. I do feel as though that a lot of Muslims, liberal Muslims, or people who leave the faith or change their mentality don't necessarily stop identifying as Muslims. They might just stay just to keep things easy and breezy with their families or their communities. What was the motive for you to come out as an atheist and actually you're an atheist, and then also to start this activism thing?
Yeah. So I heard Sam Harris's podcast, or Diane Hirsi Ali, Sarah Hayder, following exMNA, following everybody else's, I guess, talks, whatnot. The one thing was curiosity on how people like me feel. So like ex-Muslims feel. And I'm like, how do I connect? And I think my very first ex-Muslim statement that I had made in an article was a mask. Like, it wasn't my real name. My photo was there, but it wasn't real. They named me Sadia instead of Zara because I wasn't ready to be out in public. But I wanted to like relate to people like me. And then I realized that because I am so private and hidden, even if we opened Faithless Hijabi, because Faithless Hijabi had always been in the mindset, like when I left, people are not going to identify with a person or people or a group of people. People are not going to be authentic to the cause, and nobody is going to know that their stories are going to be heard, because while I don't have, I don't have the fear of being doxxed in an Islamic country, other people do. So what is best for everybody else to come up and bring an uprising? And I'm so happy that from 2 years, like in 2 years, we've had so many people reach out. Increasingly, a lot of the young girls as well from like 15, 16 are leaving. And I think when I was 15 and 16, I didn't know anything about evolution or the Big Bang or anything that were scientific. For me, it was just things like, why should I pray for a God? Why should I pray to a God? So to see that the younger generations are being more vocal and are thinking a lot, it just made sense for like me to come out to actually talk to people, because while I was in a theoretically good position, like I had a job, I was in a safe country, my family was talking to me, how can we then spread it to other people? Like, what can I do to help? And it couldn't be behind a screen. So like leaving Islam coming, I think the week after or next week. So I don't know if he's going to show his face, but it was something that, like, right now he has some really good content, and I'm really glad that he wants to come out. Yeah, I'm really glad that he wants to come out. But at the same time, when he does, there'll be more personalization. At the same time, you're also open to more attacks as well. But at the same, like, you know, it's like the
But it does
outweigh.
it does strengthen your message, because people know that this is a real person, and there is something to relate to there. That's what I found.
Yeah. And I think the more people come out and the more people stand up, a lot of the others follow. And in a way, like, I've never been somebody, like, it's something that I say, it doesn't matter that Islam is the fastest growing religion, no matter, even if it's converts, that doesn't make it true. But I think for me, it's always been the establishment of a community where people who've left have come out, and it's growing. That is a requirement of supporting that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I have loved what I do, and it's even in the background, and like sometimes it's like my weeknights and my weekdays and whatnot. It's just like chatting to anybody, and I'm like, okay, what's happening, or like, how do we work on this together?
Yeah.
And sometimes one message from you can help somebody in very different ways. So I think that has always been my goal, and that was my motivation to actually come out and help other people be there with me. So I'm always looking to like amplify the voices. I'm always looking to like, what can I do to help?
Good. The next thing that I wanted to ask you is that you seem to be a favorite for the Instagram hate squad. So something happened quite recently, and I covered it in yesterday's video on my channel, but I kind of want to go into some depth with that. I don't usually get targeted on Instagram because none of my Instagram content is inflammatory, and any of it that is it just gets sort of overshadowed by me doing a cute makeup look. But I don't exactly know what happened for you to deserve as much hatred in this sacred month as you did. So what happened and why?
So what is happening right now is that Instagram, if you look at the audience or the people that use Instagram, they're usually younger. They're people who want photos. They want to follow other people, even if they're shy with their own bodies and own faces. But it's communication, it's following other people, and being. So it's a younger crowd anyway. So that explains why any post on Instagram can go viral and can be quite erratic in terms of responses. Because there were younger people. So what happened was I posted up the Ramadan fasting tips, and it wasn't only meant for ex-Muslims, but the hashtag was exMuslim, Ramadan, Haramadan. And these are the tips if you don't want to fast. And it wasn't like I said, there was no ex-Muslim on the poster, but it was in the hashtags. So because Ramadan was tagged in it, somebody saw it and they started passing it around. And people thought it was so blasphemous that I asked other people to sneak in protein bars if they don't want to fast, because how dare I help people who defy religion, or how dare I tell people to pretend to download an app so
that you help people feed themselves.
Yeah, I'm like, how dare I empower a group of people that don't believe. And I think people just took offense to that. So that's how they were introduced to my profile. And then obviously I had the poster, Allah is gay. And then I broke up with Allah because it's toxic and narcissistic. But also Aisha's age, and a lot of like my new stuff. So a lot of photos and whatnot. And that's how it just began. And I didn't realize they were kids initially. I didn't realize that a group was attacking me for 2 weeks until I was accidentally added in the group. And once you're added, you can't
remember.
Once you're added, you can't really leave. Sorry, once you're added, so they can push you out, but you have all the history. So I went back and I looked at all the chats, and that's when I realized they were kids, and somebody went like, oh, how old is everyone? And someone went like 14, 17, 19. It was a group of like 30 British, Bengali, and Pakistani
That's so surprising.
kids, and that goes back to what I was talking about, the Caliphate and Shamima Begum, where they felt like somebody was attacking their identity.
Mm-hmm.
And watching the Caliphate actually helped me clear out, and I'm like, why were these groups so vile? And I had a conversation with some people who started attacking me, and they ended up following me, some women who obviously did not wish me death, because then I would not really talk to them. But the other girls who were actually like, but why did you leave? You're wrong. And I'm like, I was talking to one of the girls, and it was really nice just having a conversation with her. And I'm like, I'm doing a review of the Caliphate. Do you want to watch it? I know you don't have Netflix, but maybe the review would help. And she basically talked to me. She's like, I've been trying to think about a scenario where a girl who was my age or a bit older than me, who wasn't raised religious, but ended up shooting or killing other people. Or maybe hurting other people.
Sure.
And she wasn't religious, and like that movie really helped me open my eyes. Like she's like, I'm agnostic-ish. I wasn't raised very religious. I don't wear a hijab or anything, but neither did she. And then she just suddenly became religious, and your review helped. So I think like that was really like, it spoke home. Like it was like hit the nail on the head. And she, you know, when her friends messaged me because she was upset at what I had said, and I'm like, have you read any other book? She sent it to her friends. She's like, this old lady is harassing me. And I'm like, you came to my thread and started calling me a slut. Like, how am I meant to know you're 14? Like, you started calling me a slut on messages.
She
and I
called
just
you an old lady?
Yeah. I mean, I think she just said, not old lady, but I think she just said this. So a few of her friends sent me messages. And some of the messages were like, oh, are you harassing a kid? And I'm like, she's a kid? Like, why? I'm like, I wonder how her parents would feel knowing that she's swearing at people. But the other part was also like, some of her friends went like, I hope you get killed. I hope you die. If I find you, I will kill you. And I sent those screenshots to her, and she's like, but he's really nice on chat. And I'm like, please don't hang out with them.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, this is what is going to happen. What happens is that if you're not religious and they want to be friends with you, they're going to go like, oh, we're going to go slow in her until she comes back. Or if you leave, they're going to treat you the same way they treat me. So I feel like some groups, even if they're not religious, they and tend to, I guess, impress their groups, or they tend to fit in, because if they don't fit in, they're going to be ostracized and they're not going to have a community. And I think that's how, I guess, a lot of the extremism is built in.
I think that, a lot of sometimes it's just showboating, because they want to seem like they are defending this idea or this religion or whatever, but there's a lot of fear around it, because if you don't come out and you don't say something, it's going to be like, well, why didn't you defend it? So
real quick, I just want to jump in. Maynard Saves had a question for the two of you. You know, if you can read it on the screen there, you know, if you guys still adhere to Muslim diet, you know, or if it's had been part of your life, I guess sometimes.
I mean, a good question would be, why would we do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes you do something for so long that it just still remains, you know. I could see someone leaving Islam and then still like having an aversion to bacon or something like that because of, you know, whatever reasons.
I did for a while, but I mean, I've tried it, and now I'm vegetarian, miserably vegetarian, I might add.
When did you become vegetarian?
In January.
Really?
Yeah. We discussed this in my mukbang video.
Oh yeah, because you weren't vegetarian on my birthday. Huh.
Yeah. No, but we had a massive argument on your birthday, if you remember.
Not me, you and Ali.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, David.
I eat meat. I eat a lot of meat. I was raised eating a lot of meat, African diet. So I have hated vegetables. So what has changed this year is I've been eating more vegetables and a lot of meat. My meat to vegetable used to be 5-0. And now it is 5-1, which is good. Okay.
All right.
So Maynard had also asked a while back, he wants to know if all ex-Muslims are as beautiful as the two of you.
Probably not.
Everyone's beautiful.
And then
There's no
Iron
such
Cherry,
thing as ugly babies.
and Iron Charioteer had asked a while back, and I'm not sure what he means, but maybe you'll know. He says, Zara Kay, do you think Muhammad hijab is intimidating?
I mean, if anybody has met me in person, I am 5'0". I am tiny. I am like, if I'm
Don't
quiet,
underestimate Zara.
I was
Just
gonna
because
say,
she's tiny.
I asked all of my friends and my partner's friends if between me and my partner, who is more likely to get into a bar fight, and I don't think anybody said his name. They were like, you. Like in the first 5 seconds.
Also, your partner is very, very tall. Craig is very tall, but of the two of you,
yeah, I'm likely to even throw a punch if somebody was like mean to me. I did that when somebody was harassing me in the middle of the street. And he came towards me to hug me, and this was at night at like 1 a.m. in Budapest, and I punched him, and he was really drunk, so I ran away. I punched his lower rib, so nothing broke. But yeah, I just ran away after.
But no, I just want to say that Muhammad hijab isn't intimidating. If anything, he's just very annoying. I know he's super tall and he's very masculine, but he's not. It's not that intimidating.
I think you can quote me on this, but I don't want to get his spit or saliva on my face. I feel like when he talks, he does that, and I'm like, that in this day and age right now is intimidating. Definitely, like COVID.
He's also very tactile. At least with the men that I've seen him like argue with, he's very like, oh, I'm gonna hold your shoulder. I'm gonna push you. He's very. I think he tries to be intimidating, but he comes off as just really creepy and weird.
It's only with men that he does that. Faye.
Yeah, of course.
There's a reason for it.
He wouldn't talk to us. He'd just.
No, there's a reason.
Half the intelligence of him. I mean, come on.
There's a reason why he's touchy with men, Faye.
Yeah, he's hella gay.
Yeah.
Hella gay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a hypocrisy. It's a hypocrisy. That's why it's so great to be able to tease or talk about it, because I'm like, your religion hates you.
Oh, it's sad. On the one hand, it's really sad, but like when you watch him talk to other men and he's like really getting competitive and really, you can see the smile on his face. You can see him like becoming more chummy and trying to impress people. He's gay.
So I missed the first. I missed the. Must be I was looking at something on the screen. Who is it that we're talking about here?
Muhammad hijab. He's like one of those speakers corner preachers.
Oh, okay. See, because when I read that question, I didn't realize that was somebody's name. I thought that they were asking like about something that is a Muhammad hijab. Like, so
that's someone's name. So it's not like Muhammad and hijab. But yeah, no, that's someone's
it's a bizarre name, so I understand that.
Is his last name really hijab?
I wouldn't be surprised.
There's Muhammad hijab age, weight, and height that you'd have for celebrities. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, if he's like a convert, it wouldn't be surprising that he gave himself that name, because a lot of them have quite pretentious names.
How tall is Muhammad hijab? It's on Google. 6'7". So it's about 2 feet taller than I am.
Yeah, he's a bit of a giant.
Nakasuchi, the owner of this channel, he's a bit of a giant too. He's like 6'5".
Oh wow!
I can't relate. I come from a nation of tiny people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you say you're not much more than 5 foot, Zara?
Nope.
She's 5 foot nothing.
And how tall
I'm taller than her, and I'm by nobody's description tall.
How tall are you, Faye?
5'3".
Oh, okay. I wear a lot of heels.
5'6".
I wear a lot of heels, so
yeah.
like I literally cannot walk on flat feet. I'm tiptoeing in my house, so when I do squats, my form is so messed up unless I wear heels. Because I wear heels, I can actually do squats properly. Actually, a lot of athletes have to be like they stand on a bit of a heel because it's their calf
Okay.
muscles that don't stretch. So
Fair enough.
it's fine.
Mhm.
But
Can't you just like when I do squats, I just stand more on my toes than my heel.
yeah. So basically, I do that, but I do it with weights. So I usually just wear a heel or like put something under my heel.
So yeah, just going back to
We got any more
about a
questions?
minute ago, Shmeri, what's that?
Have we got any more questions?
I think I've gotten to them as they've come along.
Okay.
Shortly after they come along, but so both of you know on Twitter, Shmeri on a Schmonday, right? I guess in the
Yes.
stream I saw the other day is what he really goes by. But so somebody was going after them about gay people, and and I can't remember what the exact tweet was, but I had tweeted back that this is from Shakespeare, but I had tweeted back, it sounds like he doth protest too much. And then had said there has to be a pretty big full Muslim closet somewhere. And Shmeriana thought that was funny. And I guess my question to you guys is do you think that there's probably more gay Muslims than anybody would know about because they're probably afraid of coming out as homosexual or lesbian?
Undeniably.
Yeah.
Undeniably. I mean, the amount of like masculine tension that we see between preachers, and we like when you go to Speaker's Corner, like all of that rowdiness, that like 40% of them are gay. 100%.
There's it is quite classical where the person who has been abused wants to be the abuser.
Mm.
So I feel like there's a lot of sexual repression, especially by the people who are religious, and their sexuality is condemned, where obviously it is a part of abuse when you keep hating yourself as well.
Yeah.
And then you continue preaching that and you make other people feel bad about it. And
I mean, like coming from a Salafi background as well, like we're not necessarily told that having feelings for the same gender is like unnatural. It's just something that is haram, so it's disallowed and you're meant to repress it. So for example, when I was I think I've told you this story as well. Like when I was younger, I understood being attracted to women because I'm also attracted to women, but it was just something that I constantly preached and something that I was told to repress because it wasn't allowed. And then later down the line, it was just like, oh, did that mean something else? Like it might also be a concept that a lot of people don't quite understand.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, what I was never taught about sex or, like I said, homosexuality or anything. So I didn't really know any of it. It was after. I think that was a big part of my journey being an atheist was when I went like, so what if they're gay? And that's when everyone's like, but the Quran said this and the Quran is right. And I was like, I don't want the Quran then. I don't want to follow it. So I think I had never faced or even thought about it, like just never crossed my mind. Yeah, so I think like people coming out, people who do tend to abuse others, I feel like it's a big part of like I don't know, I feel like it could be a big part of repression.
I think to validate it to yourself as well, you have to keep enforcing it.
Yeah. And also I think a lot of people when they talk about being gay, especially religious people, they're like, but it's not natural. I think what they only think about is people having sex, not the whole relationship. Like being gay is not only about having sex, it's also like a whole relationship. It's it's not like you adopt kids, you have a whole life beyond just the bedroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like a lot of, I don't know if it's just men or women as well. I think when the word is mentioned, you only think about yourself doing it, and that's when you find disgusting, or like that's when you're like, this is not real, or like this has been told to be wrong. But yeah, that's the only reason or what I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you, Faye, feel like you covered everything you wanted to cover with Zara, or did I interrupt you in the midst of something there? Or
oh no, I think I've covered mostly anything that I have. If you have any questions, feel free to ask Zara.
Well, no, I just know those questions that I had, and I'm just checking the chat out now to see if there's any other final questions that they had.
Is there something new you learned about me today?
Oh, me? Well, I didn't really learn anything new about you, but I did learn that I could listen to you and Faye talk back and forth for hours.
This is us on a Sunday where we're both quite tired. I don't think you could stand us at our normal energy.
I mean, usually when like Faye comes over, we watch TV, we're on our phones, and it's so chill to hang out because we're comfortable. And I'm like, if I'm on my phone while you're talking, or like it doesn't bother you because you're just at that level where you've known each other.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, I did learn something about you that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just remembered when you were talking about all the different places you've lived in the world. I didn't realize you were that, well traveled. I thought you were just another Brit, that came from one other country, and came to Britain.
Yeah, her accent. That's not a British accent.
I was just gonna say, but I actually wrote a Facebook status where I was like, my Australian accent's gone, because I had a few videos last year of myself talking about one of the conferences, and I had a very Aussie accent, and then I moved here, and now my flatmate is a southerner, so she is from south part of the US.
Mm-hmm. No, Americans confuse Australian and British accents. You still have your Aussie accent.
But go right down the line again. You said that you at one time you were in Australia. Did you say?
Oh yeah, so I was born in Tanzania. I lived in Malaysia for 4 years, and then I lived in Australia for 8 years, and then I moved to the UK a year ago.
Wow.
And I think I was one of the first people you met in the UK. Just to
wait a minute, the two of you.
When I moved here, yes. So when I moved here, yes. When I came here on holiday, so I came here on holiday a year before December, so December 2018. So that's when I went to the CMB's like Christmas party, and that was like, what is this? And then they knew I was moving, so we moved.
So the two of you have only known each other a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Because the way you guys get on, I thought that you were, friends for decades.
I mean, it's also because we have a lot to talk about and share, and we've hung out quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like
we've shared a lot of our fair few of like arguments and dramas, and like sisters. Like we've just had a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
What are you doing with your fingers?
Oh, sorry. I was basically creating mini people traveling from one area to another. Anyway, but yeah, no, I've lived in like 1, 2, 3, 4 different continents. But I've traveled to about 40 now.
Have you ever been to the US?
Yeah, so
Zara has.
I remember I was actually telling my partner this, that when I said that my community comes from like people who are sympathizers with Iran. So when Qasem Soleimani was killed, they used to say things like, America's going to get it. So I never wanted to come to the US. I was like, US should not get my money. I'm not going to pay for a ticket. I'm not going to pay for a visa, blah, blah. And then I got a job with Google. So technically they paid for it. So my ticket, my living, everything, my eating as well, they paid for it. But I felt bad about shopping there. So, and they would like car rentals and everything. I didn't have to pay for anything. But that's when I came to the US. I went to San Francisco, and then I went to Michigan. And then I came back to Australia, and then like a few months later, I went to New York. Yeah, I think it's American English. I think it's American English. So my roommate being Southern, I just saw the last comment. So my roommate being a Southern US, I adopt a few things from her.
Yeah, it's very addictive. I dated an American for almost 3 years. Language is very addictive.
Matter of fact, like maybe 5-10 minutes ago, you said something, and for some reason, in my ear, it sounded kind of like an Irish accent.
Zara's accent is very confused.
Well, right. I mean, it seemed like, it went from British to Irish for just like a sentence or two, and then right back again. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, next year I'd probably sound very English. But I don't know. Remember, it depends how long I have to be stuck indoors. So,
well, I mean, then anybody is susceptible to that. I mean, I know a lot of people in this country that they'll move south for a few months, and then, next time you talk to them, they have a southern draw. Yeah, hang around people. So, hey, I think a few moments ago when Zara was doing the finger puppets at the bottom of the screen, I think that's a sign that we've come to the end of the program here. But maybe we could do a stream sometime in the future where Zara and Faye just do finger puppets the whole time.
We could do finger puppets. I need to get you on my channel, actually. I just haven't had... What?
Hey, high five. High five. Not the other side. The other side. The other side, Faye. No, that side. The other hand. The other hand.
The other hand?
Or that.
Or that. Hand?
Or that. Or that.
Yeah,
okay.
Right now. Oh, there you go.
Social distancing. Okay.
So, again, next week we're going to have exMuslim Somali Voices, and the following Sunday it's going to be Ali from Leaving Islam.
Yep.
I think exMuslim Somali Voices had told me they're not sure who's going to come on. That there's more than one person that's involved with that, but they were going to know who was going to come on. And just want to give everybody an opportunity to Zara. We'll start with you. I mean, is there somebody was asking earlier in the chat about your channel? Your YouTube channel is Zara Kay, right? Yeah.
Hopefully I'm going to do more live, because I think that is more of my thing than actually like recording a video. But yeah.
And then you can find Zara on Twitter as well. I believe it's at Zara Kay with another K at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And want to thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry we didn't have a bigger audience. I thought we advertised it well in advance, and we're going to have to look at what we can do to maybe get
It'll grow. It'll grow with time.
Yeah. I think we had about 22 at once.
Yeah. And that's standard for pretty much any of the live streams we do on this channel. I didn't even know if Nakatsuchi's still. Yeah, don't worry about coming back in, Nak. We'll just forego with the outro. Everybody got to see it on the intro. Faye, do you have anything coming up on your channel or elsewhere that you want to let people know about?
I'm trying not to plan anything because I have an essay to finish writing for school.
And then I need your help.
And
then I need your help.
Yeah, I know. I've got a little project to do for Zara. She wants me to sketch something. But yeah, I don't have anything coming up. We have our regular shows, so next week we'll have just more drama stuff. We'll have more some warfare. We'll have more just everything. Just a lot of fun. The last video I uploaded actually is quite funny, and it missed out on a lot of views because one of the clips that I used was just immediately copyrighted. So
I got to tell you, that pisses me off. I see that happen to so many people. As if, and it must be like you said in I think a tweet where you were saying how it was like the algorithm, like it's not human beings that are making these judgments. Yeah. It's algorithm, and you're using something under fair use, and then it still gets blocked. I mean,
I couldn't even dispute it. It was ridiculous. So I had to cut it out, and they, reprocessed it and it was fine, but it was just a shame because it was a clip that I really wanted to talk about. But I guess because it was on, on Drag Race, which is a US show or something, they blocked it in every country but in the US.
That's nuts. So, and I will get both everybody's information in the video description. I will put the links to the tweets we talked about earlier in the description, so you can check those out. Please go and subscribe to both of these ladies' channels, and follow them on Twitter. Both of them have very worthwhile things to say that you would find interesting for sure. Thank you everybody who was here today. There were some new faces in the crowd, and hopefully, as Faye said, that we'll get some bigger audiences as time goes by. Thank you all for being here, and just remember, this is the Apostate Alliance on the Rage, and the Apostate Alliance is where you can be free to not believe. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.